One of the biggest barriers many people who I've worked with over the years face when trying to transition to a healthier or more optimal diet are their sugar cravings. So I thought it would be helpful in this video to kind of touch base on my personal, super embarrassing background with sugar addiction and basically how I came out of it. For the past 5 years, I haven't I don't want to say I haven't had any sugar because I'm sure there's some mixed in with my food somewhere here and there that I haven't noticed. But as far as intentionally putting it in my body, that has not been the case. And I have not had a single craving since. So I am going to let you in on my secret and the strategy I use with my clients. And it's only 5 steps. So make sure you stick around for all 5. So if you guys are at all familiar with my channel, then perhaps you've heard the story already. So I'm just going to give you like the short version. So basically, my mother and my father also ate a lot of sugary foods when I was growing up. So I'm sure my mom ate plenty while I was in the womb, and then I was surrounded by it from day one. So I kind of had a disadvantage as a child. Every cent that I earned when it came to my allowance each week, I would get my mom to take me straight to the grocery store or the gas station where I could buy the biggest bag of candy I could, and I was just immersed in it from a very young age, and I had all sorts of problems, as obviously you would anticipate, like dental issues and skin problems and inflammation, and eventually I developed autoimmune problems, and it just seemed to be getting worse and worse and worse with the brain fog and ADHD and anxiety and fatigue, just those awful things that come along with not taking care of yourself. But I would definitely say the biggest symptom I experienced from this awful sugar addiction was to the point where I could not think. All I cared about was getting home and getting it to my giant bag of candy, or I would keep it in my car or in my desk drawer or whatever, just making sure that I always had my stash somewhere. It was like being addicted to cigarettes or being addicted to alcohol. I always had some somewhere, so I was never running out. And I remember being in college and I would actually spend my rent money on the Mike and Ike's or the Reese's peanut butter cups instead of paying my electric bill and my rent sometimes. So it was to that extent. I was an addict. It was really gross. You know you have a problem when you wake up every morning and the first thing on your mind is that bag of candy and your gummy bears and your snack packs and your sugary yogurts and your sugary cereals. And from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed every day, everything revolved around sugar. And I did not care about hanging out with friends or about my grades at one point. All I cared about was getting my snacks and my candy and my junk food. I ate sugar for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Candy was my food group. And you know how you start with just a little bit and then you build a tolerance and then you go up to the family size bag? Well, I didn't stop there. I would go up to that massive 5-pound bag after the family size bag of your gummy bears or your M&Ms or whatever it may be. My drive for sugar was insatiable. It did not matter how much I ate. I used to eat an entire bag of licorice before going for a jog. Like, my stomach was probably ripped apart by all of the sugar that I would consume. And when I became old enough to drink, every single alcoholic drink was a sugary, nasty beverage. And eventually I developed celiac disease, and I'm sure that the sugary foods may have been, played a part in it to some extent, but who knows? That's mostly gluten. But for those of you who don't know, the small intestine is the major site of injury for celiac disease, and I definitely was not very good to my intestine over the years. So I guess I'm not totally surprised that I have this condition now. But the point of the story is I dealt with all of this opposition, all of this insidious, intense extremeness of my addiction, and I still came out of it. And this is why I want to share this video. The majority of people I've worked with have found this system to be very useful, and we could all use some tools in our toolbox when dealing with sugar cravings. So we're going to start with step 1. So the first thing you want to do is take a step back and really assess your inner dialogue. Assess those justifications and those rationalizations and the denial that you have around the issue. Pay close attention each time you make an exception with your health and give in to one of these foods. And just from beginning to end, how does it start? How is it triggered? What exactly am I telling myself from, point A to point B? How am I guiding this behavior? Why do I keep doing something even though it's not benefiting me? This will really help you to just start building awareness and getting in touch with what the heck is really going on in your nervous system and in your body. So it's at this point, you also just want to accept and acknowledge how deep of an issue this is in your life. It may be something you have dealt with for a very long time, so it's just second nature to you now to have to be suffering with this, but it is no way to live. This is an awful, insidious problem that should really be taken care of. And we are not designed for this problem in the first place. That's why the food manufacturers make their food that way, because they know that it'll hook us and we will inevitably buy more and more and more of it. And unfortunately, it's very accepted in our culture. So it's not like alcohol or hard drugs where it's so easy to get away from those things and to not see them day in and day out if you don't want to, because they are not accepted by the wider society. But your cupcakes at a kid's birthday party and soda at a kid's soccer game, it's just everywhere. And everybody's doing it and everybody's celebrating doing it. A very unnatural problem. So the sooner you can recognize the degree to which this is causing you distress, the more motivation you'll be able to build to get away from it. The last thing you want to do in step 1 is decide to make a change and commit. If you don't tell yourself, this is a big deal, this is happening, like any other major decision you've made in your life, to have children, to get married, to go to college, to accept that promotion, to move across the country, all of these decisions, you didn't go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. That would have been an awful outcome. This should be no different. This is your health, and it takes a major commitment on your end and a decision that I am not going to do this anymore. It's time. Let's move forward. All right, guys, the second step is updating your reward system. This is key, and it takes a lot of intention and attention in order to successfully complete this step. So first you want to assess exactly what you're getting out of the behavior in the first place. Are you getting some sort of excitement, some sort of pleasure, some relief in most cases, some comfort, some self-soothing, self-medicating, numbness? What is it that this food keeps driving you to consume more of it? So after you decide what it is that you're getting out of this behavior, why you keep acting it out, now I want you to eat some sort of sugary food and pay super close attention to each and every morsel and every little experience that you're feeling in your mind and your body. So before you even eat the item, what's going through your mind? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel agitated? Do you feel excited? What is going on in your mind? And then attach that to the different sensations that you feel in your body. You might get tense, you might get sweaty, you might get elated. There's so many different things going on that we don't recognize when we're not paying attention. So then you want to determine how it feels in your mouth when you take a bite of it, how it smells, how it feels going down, and then most importantly, how do you feel afterwards? This is the big important component, because you will soon recognize that it is not that pleasurable. And you are left feeling like junk and disappointed and guilty and a little ashamed and embarrassed. That's a horrible way to feel after you have put something that's supposed to nourish you in your body. So now that you've determined what you're actually getting out of the experience instead of just the imagined mindless reaction to the trigger, see, when we first do these behaviors, it tends to be helpful. It tends to give us what we need in that particular moment. But as you'll notice, as time passes and you act out this behavior over and over and over, it loses its appeal and it's no longer giving you what you thought you were originally getting out of it. So updating that reward value is key. The other thing you want to do in this step is start associating these foods with sickness, chronic disease, toxicity, and suffering. Think about all the awful things that this habit has created in your life. Diabetes, heart disease, cognitive decline. There are so many impairments that go along with a sugar addiction of any kind. All right, now that you've done the self-assessment and you've updated the reward value, now we are going to minimize your cravings so you can really tackle this issue. Now that you've made the decision, you're ready to move forward and take this first step. So, how the heck do we minimize cravings? When we are in our most healthful state, we are most capable of dealing with these super intense urges to go act out a behavior that we are actively trying to inhibit. So when it comes to optimizing your health, make sure you're getting plenty of rest. Make sure you're nourishing yourself, getting regular exercise, getting out in the sunshine and spending time in nature, spending time with loved ones and friends, and having plenty of social connectivity and having some healthy, supportive relationships, but also stress management. If we are stressed out, if we are tired, if we are hungry, 9 times out of 10, you will divert in the direction of your favorite sugary food. It just is our go-to. It is our default, and we are trying to correct that. So trying to stay, I know it's difficult to be ideal 100% of the time, especially in our modern lifestyle. But again, getting enough sleep, getting proper exercise, and all those other pillars of health, making sure those are in place. And the last thing I want to mention for minimizing cravings is hydration. So much of our cravings is simply caused by that tiny little percentage of water loss that we are not accounting for and making up for it by taking in more liquids. So I'm not talking about coffee, I'm not talking about tea, I'm not talking about soda. Make sure you're drinking water. Water is absorbed in the stomach without having to go through the digestive process. So if you are putting calories in your water of any kind, if the stomach has to digest that water, you are not absorbing it in the same way. So try your best to just get plain filtered water throughout your day, and you will have much less difficulty overcoming these cravings. All right, now you're to the point where you have already decided to kick the habit, you are moving forward, you're maybe past the first, second, third day. What do you do now? So to maintain your motivation, it's very difficult just to keep reminding yourself, okay, I did it yesterday, I can do it again today. Yes, that's helpful, but it's not as helpful as we would like at the end of the day when we're all fatigued and tired and stressed from the long workday, and our nervous system is just ready to break down. Our judgment is terrible. All we want to do is binge on our favorite sugary food. This is the point where you need to conceptualize and visualize exactly what you are accomplishing in order to track your progress. Tracking your progress is a huge component in maintaining your motivation in times of difficulty, when you just want to give in to that awful voice in your head that keeps justifying and rationalizing all the reasons why you should just give up and, go to the nearest Starbucks or whatever it is that you're trying to actively, reduce or eliminate from your life. So the way you track your progress is to just take a calendar, a physical calendar. It's really helpful to have one that you see on a regular basis. So you just want to put a big X on each day that you do not have any sugar, that, any intentional sugar that you're aware of. So the more X's you see on the calendar, the easier and easier it gets to stay far away from your drug of choice, because you'll see, wow, I made all this progress. Why the heck would I want to go backwards and suffer through all that again? It becomes very motivating when you think about all the horrible days that had passed you and the fact that you would have to go through that literally all over again had you started over. Because let's face it, this needs to happen eventually, whether it's today or 3 years from now. Obviously, sooner is going to be more beneficial than later. So marking the calendar and tracking your progress, or any sort of tracker, if you like your apps on your phone or if you like something online, by all means, utilize that. But I think it's really helpful to have something physical, something tangible that you can actually mark on the calendar instead of your buttons on your phone. And it's not something that's in your physical environment. So it doesn't have as much importance, I think. It doesn't have as much weight on your psyche and your subconscious. So Track your progress. That's step 4. Let's move into the final step. Okay, so the final thing you want to do to sustain all the progress you're making and maintain your motivation day in and day out and year after year after year is keeping yourself educated on why you're doing this. Because if you really don't know the inner workings of your body and what is happening every time that you give in to one of these awful pseudo foods, it's very likely that you're going to be at a party or you are going to have a really hard day at work and you're going to be driving home past your favorite candy shop or wherever you used to buy your drug of choice, and you're going to inevitably give in and start all over. So it is necessary to find your favorite podcasts, your favorite books, your favorite YouTube videos, whatever you need to understand exactly what's happening neurologically and biologically when it comes to having some sort of awful addictive pull to these sugary foods. I think it's most important to understand the neuroadaptation that goes along with the dopamine withdrawal when you are no longer saturating your system. So that feeling of deprivation and discomfort and feeling like you're missing out when you see people at social events eating cake or whatever, it's because your brain is literally trying to get back to a homeostasis and experience a normal release of dopamine instead of having those large oversaturated bouts of dopamine saturation. So the more you understand what's going on in your body and the longer you experience the withdrawal and every little component that goes into getting off of some sort of sugary food, the more wisdom and enlightenment you will obtain. And inevitably, you will lead to a better place, a better headspace where you're no longer pulled to these foods. You're no longer craving them. They no longer have that control over you because you don't put them on a pedestal anymore. They're not fun. They're not exciting. They don't bring you happiness and joy. They bring you misery and suffering and food cravings and obnoxious preoccupations with these foods. So those are the 5 steps, and I hope this video has been helpful. So if you try these tips and determine that more one-on-one support is needed to overcome this pull, this addiction towards these sugary foods, make sure you reach out because I work with a number of individuals on this issue, especially how the problem pertains to weight gain and other health conditions. So my link is in the description box below if you're ready for a free consultation. Otherwise, I hope you guys the best of luck in this endeavor. This is an awful, awful way to live out your life, and I know it firsthand, and I truly hope the best for you and your circumstance. So I will see you guys shortly in the next video.